Thousands of essays that students complete for their AP exams get graded, and they get hand graded by AP readers.
And those words have to jump up, off the screen and say, hey, talk to me, be interested in me. And so I always tell them to drop F-bombs, drop facts, drop those vocabulary words, drop the dates.
Let's talk about one of the most challenging aspects of teaching AP, grading free response questions. We all know the drill. You sit down with a stack of essays and you think, I'll knock these out in an hour. But 3 hours later, you're still debating whether that evidence earns the point. Your strongest students submitted a masterpiece on exam day. It's organized, it sounds smart, it uses words like moreover and consequently. You're thinking, College Board's gonna love this, and then it earns a 3 out of 6. What happened? Today, I'm joined by veteran AP educator and experienced AP reader, Greg Hill, to talk all about how FRQs are really scored, what actually earns points, and how understanding the process can save your students points and maybe save you a little sanity. This is episode number 3, things about AP FRQs you always want to know, but you're afraid to ask. Welcome, Greg, to the show.
Thanks for having me.
We've also got the wonderful Megan Blessing here. Hello.
Hi, Philip. Hi, Greg.
Hey, Megan.
So for those of you listening that aren't familiar with AP readers, thousands of essays that students complete for their AP exams get graded, and they get hand graded, and they get hand graded by AP readers. And AP readers, they're teachers, they're college professors. They're really some big, important, fantastic names. And then they always bring in, I would say, new folks in. And that was your opportunity as a new person to come in and really get to interact with these great other AP readers. Now, you obviously became a fantastic, well-known AP reader, but your first, jump into it must have been pretty exciting.
It is. And it's one of the beautiful things about the reading is there's a good mix of young and old. Maybe I shouldn't use the word old. Some might
experience.
Freak out of experience. And that's exactly what they call them, experienced. And so there's a great dichotomy. And the good thing is experienced teachers can learn from the young teachers. There's some that come from other genres like English or from middle school or whatever it is. And they may bring in a fresh perspective on teaching a class. So that's one of the beautiful things about it. And they always rotate the leadership. Mm-hmm. And they're doing a better job of that, this year and in the last couple of years of rotating the leadership. Sure. So everybody gets a taste of that, of the different parts of the AP reading. It's not just a group of teachers in a room that just grinding. There's a systematic way that we do this in the sense that, and a lot of people worry that, maybe this one person's going to grade my essay and that's it. But there's a hierarchy and there's quality controls built in to the system to check to make sure everybody gets a fair share.
Well, that's how they standardize things. Because if you're grading thousands of essays, you've got to do it in the most fair way possible. And you've got, like you said, a diverse group of folks with different levels of experience, and they somehow have to calibrate it. So a student's essay from St. Louis gets the same type of score as another student's essay in maybe California. And how do they standardize things? How do they ensure that every student's getting a fair shot when they've got hundreds of different graders?
That's a great question. And one of the things we do is, you mentioned that word calibration, is we try to calibrate, just like we would do in our classrooms with our fellow geography teachers. We had 5 geography teachers in the department. So you get together as a team, as a table, and you calibrate. Okay, what did you give it? What did you give it? And here's what the score should have been. And we can kind of talk that through. And yes, nothing's perfect. And if there's something we see that's really egregious, we can take it what we call the big tent. And if they agree, they'll change some things. And if not, they'll say, no, we'll leave it the same. But there's steps along the way. There's multiple layers where people are checking to make sure things are accurate. And table leaders, these are people that basically are managers of a group of like 8 people. And so as a table leader, I'm checking these 8 people's statistics, and I'm taking samples of what they're grading based on what the rubric should be. And I might say, hey, you're a little bit high. kind of make sure you're reading the rubric, read it again. You also, again, you have that human element.
Yeah.
And so you've got to, hey, if I see Megan is over there looking kind of sleepy. It's like, hey, Megan, go get a cup of coffee or get some water, take a break. Because again, we want to give everybody their fair shake.
Sure.
We want everybody to be fresh. Stuff happens, life happens. I mean, we've
Sure.
had some emergencies happen with readers. And just like in the classroom, you got to monitor and adjust. You got to adjust on the fly.
So the average essay, how many different readers or how many eyeballs will see and grade that essay?
On average, 2 tops.
Okay.
That's not to say it could be 5
Sure.
or more.
It just depends.
And there's stuff built in now with things going digital. There's some electronic means that are in there that kind of flags, hey, this is not looking right. You might want to kick, and it's kicked back to somebody.
So they'll look at data from an individual AP reader and kind of analyze that and kind of help you guys out for calibration. That's good they're using that tool.
And there's built-in testing tools. So for example, you may be grading 20 essays, but embedded in those are 3 or 4 different ones that kind of test you to make sure you're doing
They
the
plant
right thing.
They
I didn't say plant, you did. But,
Gotcha.
but again, it's a way to make sure we're doing our best work.
Sure.
Because, my own kids have taken AP Human Geography, and just like anybody, you want your kid to get the fair share. You want your students to get the fair share.
And you feel like every kid's getting the fair share.
I believe that every kid's getting a fair share.
Yeah. Good.
And you'll get those college professors. You'll get, that teacher in Waycross, Georgia. Sorry, Waycross, Georgia. I'm just top of my head. Or even Allen, Texas. That just is just really, really rigid on the rubric.
Yeah.
We try to grade holistically, and that's what we as table leaders are there to do is not only manage them but coach them as well.
Sure.
It's like, hey, you may do it this way, but again, we're trying to grade holistically.
Yeah.
Right.
I always tell every AP teacher I talk to who has not been an AP grader, an AP reader, to go and do that. What do you think AP teachers get out of the experience?
Again, number one thing you get is the camaraderie with your fellow colleagues. So there's great opportunities for PD, professional development. Yeah. There's a dedicated professional development night, usually with a speaker of some sort. There's multiple other opportunities. Dine out night they have a dine out night where they shut down a cafeteria and they tell you, go out, hang out with your colleagues, talk shop, get to learn them. Because, grading, again, those thousands of essays can be a grind. And again, to keep us fresh, go out and talk to people. Yeah. Be a human.
Yeah.
But the biggest thing is number one, PD. Number 2 is networking. Mm-hmm. So if I need to, I'm not sure about agriculture. Agriculture is one of my least favorite. I mean, it's great, but it's not my wheelhouse. So I can call my friend Celeste Reynolds up in Mashpee, Massachusetts, and say, hey, you love agriculture. You worked for USDA and FDA and some other government agencies in agriculture. Help me out with this. And she'll, help me out. She knows I love urban geography, so she'll call me up, say, hey, give me some great urban examples.
Yeah.
And I'll run her through those. And that's the biggest thing. Of course, you get to learn, how the sauce is made, how are AP essays graded. So you can go back to your classroom and tell kids, hey, kids, this is what you're up against.
Yeah.
Right? And so you can structure your instruction that tailors kids to, and in Texas, our biggest obstacle is you have some kids that are taking the STAR test, and they can kind of take their time, and I call it the flyaway moment. You remember that song, Flyaway? Maybe not. I might be dating myself here.
You're welcome to sing some if you like.
No, I'm not. I'm good. But with AP Human Geography on that FRQ, your enemy is the clock.
Yeah.
And so you've got to
manage that,
but in an organized way.
Yeah. So let's dispel some myths. Okay. All right. So myth number 1, is there something that a student can do on an FRQ and an AP reader can look at it and they're automatically going to get a horrible score?
Not write anything.
Okay. All right.
I always encourage my students, even if you write your name, it's got to be scored.
So therefore, if they write, even if it's not just spot on correct things, that helps.
Well, I guess the biggest thing, this is what I tell my students, is you're going to have some person, we talked about this earlier, maybe from California, they don't know you from Adam. I know your writing. I know your writing style, but they may not. I said, it's kind of like speed dating. You've got to get that person's interest in 2 minutes.
Yeah.
Because that's really the average how long a person's going to read your paper.
Sure. And they've got to get something on paper for you to get that.
Exactly. And those words have to jump up, well, now off the screen. I used to say off the page.
Yeah.
You got to jump off the screen and say, hey, talk to me.
Interesting.
Be interested in me.
Yeah.
And so I always tell them to drop F-bombs. My principal came in one time, had the same reaction years ago. Drop facts.
That
drop those
F-bombs.
vocabulary words. Drop the dates. Drop the concepts. Put those things together to show the reader you know what you're talking about.
Sure.
And if you're just putting fluff, we get these breakup.
The other F word.
Well, yeah, but we get that too. But we often get the breakup letters where my boyfriend broke up with me today. Blah,
In
blah,
the
blah, blah,
essay.
In the essay.
Extra. Oh, they're getting to know you, I guess.
But the key thing is we still got to read it.
Sure.
Because some kids, and it's happened to me a couple years ago, they'll lull you asleep. Oh, my boyfriend broke up with me. I'm having a bad day. I'm not sure I'm going to get a great score. And then boom.
They'll hit you with something good.
With something good. I was like, oh, that's a point.
That's interesting. So what about grammar?
Great question. I always tell my students is if you don't know how to spell it phonetically, how it sounds. Okay. Because we're not there to be the grammar police. Oh, you're missing a comma, you're missing a period. We're reading holistically. If you spell agglomeration with one G but we can tell it's agglomeration, you're getting the point.
So fancy vocab?
Well, in terms of fancy vocab, if it's something AP Human specific,
gotcha.
yes, that's gonna get you in the wheelhouse. It's gonna get you in the door.
Okay.
To getting a point.
Okay. Handwriting really doesn't factor as much now because it's digital. So that's kind of a unique thing. When it used to be all handwritten, that had to be a challenge.
Back in the day when we had handwriting and that looked worse than any script imaginable, we had some people that were what we called the handwriting whisperers. And we would say, okay, let me go find Megan. Megan, could you read this for me?
Yeah.
And they could, line by line, blah, 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 blah. No point or a point.
So I'm a bit of a handwriting, savant. My wife's assistant principal, and last night she literally had me look through some, I guess, witness statements from students.
Oh, okay.
And she's like, read this. And man, I read it, and she looked at me like, how am I deciphering that? It's like I was reading hieroglyphics.
Right.
But when your handwriting is as bad as mine, I guess you just learn to
I know the feeling.
Something like that. So what do you think is the biggest misunderstanding with FRQs in teachers?
That's a really good question. I think the biggest misunderstanding is that if you don't finish them all, you will get a bad score. And that's certainly not the case.
Okay.
You could do well on the first one and maybe not so well on another one.
Okay. But
I always tell my kids, write about what you know first and go back, do the rest later. Again, you're going against the clock. You're timed on this. I think, and so a lot of kids will, and another thing too is you don't have to give us a dissertation.
Okay.
Answer the writing prompt. Simply, if it says describe it. If it's explain it. And get out of there because you don't have enough time to give us that flyaway moment. Yeah. It's kind of like a stealth bomber. Drop your ordnance and get out of there.
Sure.
On to the next one.
What do you recommend for FRQs as far as teacher preparation for them? So do you start the year with easy FRQs? Do you wait to, bring FRQs in later on the year? How do you teach FRQs?
Well, I know I kind of trick, don't tell my students. I trick them into doing FRQs. Okay. The first day of school.
Okay.
We'll do something they did over the summer. I know a popular one teachers like to do is over ice cream. But the key is what we're trying to do is hook them on those action verbs, whether it be identify, whether it be explain, whether it be a describe. And you do that either as a structured writing assignment or a bell ringer, just a piece, just one. You don't have to do a whole 4 or 7 part, FRQ. You can just do one and do it every day, one piece at a time.
So early, kind of like spoonful.
Yeah, spoon feed them. And then as you go along, kind of give them those techniques. And you've got to teach them what the action verbs are. If you got to teach them action verbs, describe, explain, what they mean and what's expected of them has been kind of my successful strategy, for lack of a better term. And just it's just like training for a marathon. I run 5Ks. I do 5Ks. I walk them and run them. And I love doing 5Ks.
Yeah.
But if that's all I'm doing all year is 5Ks, and all of a sudden I want to run a half marathon, it's not going to look pretty.
Yeah.
And so you can't get to April and, okay, kids, let's start doing FRQs.
Yeah.
Because the kids are going to have what I call an all freak out moment.
Yeah.
And you don't want the kids to have that. You want them to go in May and be relaxed, and like, I got this. They're going to have some test anxiety. But when they look at that FRQ and they're like, oh my God, I've only done this one time.
It's a problem.
It's a problem.
Yeah.
So you've got to train them from day one, and just up the frequency and time everything is another big one.
Ooh, good. Every day, educators work tirelessly to keep high school students motivated. But despite their best efforts, too many students still feel lost in a system that doesn't always support their success. At UWorld, we believe education is about unlocking a future full of possibilities. That's why our team of educators created teaching and learning tools for the advanced placement exams. Powerful, easy-to-use resources that help students master even the most challenging concepts. Content that features dynamic visuals created by world-class artists and interactive elements that spark curiosity and a love for learning. Our mission is to help every student reach their full potential. Whether that means earning valuable college credit by excelling on AP exams or achieving their dream SAT score, UWorld is here every step of the way. Every day, across the country, students are using UWorld to turn their aspirations into reality. Discover how UWorld can help your students succeed. Visit collegereadiness.uworld.com to learn more. So let's talk about feedback. Super important for AP teachers to provide feedback to students pretty consistently for FRQs. How do you keep from getting students responding to your feedback without burning them out?
Well, a couple of things you can do is I always like to let the kids feedback each other. And again, I kind of trick them into being FRQ readers. And so what I have to do is when we do FRQs, formal ones, don't put your name, turn it over, and put your student ID number.
Okay.
And that way, when I give it out, it's like, oh, I don't know who this is. And here's the rubric, graded as the rubric says. Don't worry about and that way, if I get Megan's, I'm like, oh, Megan's my bestie,
You'd be biased.
Yeah, I'd be biased. And so it's also a way it shows them, because one of the things I do towards about April is we'll have a mock AP reading.
Yeah.
And I'll hire the kid with the highest average. They become the chief reader.
Nice.
And I said, here's the rubric. Here are the possible answers. Study it and don't share it with anybody. Pinky, promise you won't share it. I won't share it. And they love it because they get out of necessarily doing the work, but they love it because they can go around. So you don't have to go around and make sure everybody's doing the right thing.
Mm-hmm.
And that way it's not me hovering over them.
Yeah.
It's one of their peers.
Yeah, that's great.
And then their peers are grading their essays, not me all the time. So it's good to kind of mix that in.
Yeah.
Because you'll have that little quiet kid that, might get intimidated by the whole writing process. And they know that, Diego or Francine is grading my essays and not Mr. Hill all the time. That's a great thing. But at the same time, as a teacher, I don't want to beat my kids down. You also got to give them something constructive, a constructive strategy to counter that. It's like, hey, I see, you're really doing good, but remember, you've got to quantify this answer with something like more than, less than, moderately, or something like that. And this is what I would do. And also like to humanize it, especially with kids that may be stuck, have writer's block. It's like, hey, when I was doing my master's, I would get writer's block all the time. So you're not the only one that does that. So kind of humanize it, so to speak.
UWorld, one of our podcast partners, we released a bunch of FRQ digital practice about a year ago to help out teachers, help out students. I'm curious, with the AP exam being digital now, what do you expect? What do you need to see from teachers? How has it changed your instruction? How has digital exams impacted AP instruction?
number one, we can read the writing better.
Okay.
For sure. We can read the typing.
So that's a positive,
yeah,
obviously.
So everything's legible. It really has allowed, the kids are writing more digitally.
Good.
I don't know if it's, just having that pencil and just having the anxiety, but just typing it, kind of getting a groove. But kids are writing more. And and of course, nothing's infallible. There have been some students that have tried to use some outside means to help them, but the College Board has some systems built in to kind of catch some of that stuff. Thank goodness.
Yeah.
But again, going back to the teacher mode, I've got to get my kids on the computers. I also kind of, as a strategy, want them to write on paper, so they're not so dependent, and they make sure that they get to know what they know.
Sure.
If you're just throwing stuff on the wall, hope it sticks, it might work, it may not.
So you still value paper?
I still value. There's still value in that pencil and paper, because I don't want my students to kind of get in the habit of, when they're at home working on it, let me look at ChatGPT, that blasted word that so many teachers don't like.
Oh gosh, yeah.
Or Gemini, which we have at school.
Yeah.
I want them to know it.
Sure.
It's got to be concrete in their brain.
The AP reading is amazing. Being AP reader, I think anybody who's done it, and even people who haven't done it, value that process. Do you think AI is going to come in and replace AP readers?
I know for sure College Board has announced that they're doing some work with AI in terms of making sure that everything's level across the board. How deep they go into that, I don't know. I can foresee them in the future replacing some readers with AI,
sure,
replacing maybe some of the hierarchy with AI. Personally, I still value the human element, because we talked about with misspellings and, if you have that kid that's an English language learner and they may have the wrong word, but it's, misspelled or in the wrong part of the sentence structure, AI might just flag it as wrong.
Sure.
Whereas I know, okay, just looking at this reading, in my experience, this is an English language learner. And I understand what they're saying. Just like with you and your wife, you're looking at those witness statements, I get what this kid is saying.
Yeah.
That is my biggest fear with AI.
Interesting.
And because with AI, who's programming AI? It's usually a computer scientist or a mathematician, not a geographer.
Interesting. So you've got a brand new AP teacher that you're mentoring, that you're coaching. I'm sure you've mentored and coached a lot of AP teachers. What's the best piece of advice you have for FRQs?
Best piece of advice I have for FRQs is, number one, make sure you understand the content. Start with the AP Human Geography course and exam description, commonly known as the CED, and just take a deep dive into that. And from that, you can start to formulate some of your own FRQs. But before you even get in that, make sure you know the content, backwards and forwards and sideways. That way, because you're going to get a kid, and we get this even with the reading, where you can have a rubric, and a kid could put something on there that's geographically accurate. And you're like, I'm not sure. And we have to give them the point.
So when there's doubt like that.
Yeah, if it's geographically accurate. And there's ways we can check and make sure, okay, if a kid put that Morocco is cultivating a culture of coexistence between religious groups. And, again, that teacher in California, like, I don't know if that's true, but it's actually true. It's geographically accurate. We have to give the kid a point. So with a brand new teacher, number one, know the content. Number two, make sure you're reading the CED to kind of see, because that's the roadmap.
Yeah.
Kind of tell you the secret sauce. That's where the FRQs are made. Yeah. It's from the CED. I can't tell you anymore, or some men and women in black suits with acorns on their back will sweep down and take us away from the College Board.
What's CED?
The course and exam description is basically the framework, the curriculum, which AP Human Geography is made.
Check your blueprint.
This is what your blueprint
for the course. Yeah.
What you've got to teach when you're teaching AP Human Geography. It's your roadmap. I mean, if you don't know that, then you're going to be in trouble.
For sure. And they tweak them every few years. They go in and they completely redesign a course.
Wow.
And they take that CED and they go, let's put that here, let's pull that out of here, that sort of thing. When's the last time they did that for
I want to
UGA?
say it's been about 8+ years.
So it might be due, huh?
We're overdue for a change. I mean, just like with any genre, geography changes.
Yeah.
So, you know, and we get feedback from high school teachers as well as college professors on what a entry-level geography student should be learning.
Sure. So teaching, coaching, what's similar about the two? What's totally different?
Oh boy. What's similar again is you're molding young minds. You got to keep kids motivated. I mean, you know, going from August to June, for some teachers, and thankfully for us, we go into the end of May. You got to keep them motivated. Kids have short attention spans, and I'm talking to some of my football colleagues that are still in the coaching game. They're like, yeah, you know, these kids with the short attention spans. So you got to, you know, you kind of, I mean, yes, the edutainment, there's value to that. So we kind of gamify some things. That is kind of the biggest similarity is you got to keep their attention span. But you also got to train them. You know, again, your time is of the essence. Biggest difference is with coaching, you can kind of let your hair down a little bit. But with teaching, you're always the sage on the stage. Whereas, you know, when I was coaching football, I'm kind of hang out to the side. And, you know, I wasn't one of those coaches that jumped up and down every 5 seconds. But, you know, I'd pull you over and say, hey, you know, on that trap block, what should you have done differently? And again, it's teaching them. Coaches are teachers. Yeah. I mean, especially in Texas, in most public schools, you have to be a teacher to begin with. Absolutely. So, you know, but the biggest difference, you can let your hair down. It was kind of like my area of refuge, so to speak. You know, teaching all day, and, you know, you got 12 IEPs over here, 14 504s over there. You know, and you're going, you got to do paperwork here, there, everywhere that was due 2 days ago. And then just in sports, you can kind of like, you know, just let it go. Is my drug of choice, so to speak, nice. For lack of a better term.
So, folks listening, you know, you're probably like, who's this Greg Hill guy? He sounds super interesting, you know, enjoying him, fantastic background, et cetera. You've done a lot. You've had an incredible teaching career. So I just want to commend you and thank you for coming on and just tell you how impressive you are. Just, you know, looking through your background, talking to some of your colleagues. I mean, you've had a magnificent teaching career and helped many, many students and many, many teachers. How can people find more about you?
You can find me on LinkedIn. That's where you can find. I post a lot of my stuff. I have a blog for geography, NTX Geography, that's on Facebook, and that's where you can find a lot of my stuff that I post. I'm so busy now with school, and I'm trying to ramp up, get ready to start this doctorate in geography. Nice. So that's probably the two best places. And YouTube. I have a YouTube channel where I post a lot of my travel videos. So, you know, like my recent trip to Morocco that I mentioned a little bit earlier. I put a lot of stuff there. And of course, a lot of people are interested in my flights and things like that. So I'll put a lot of stuff on YouTube. Yeah. You can find me at Super Mustang 82.
Awesome. Super YouTube. Mustang 82. I love it. And then if people want to become an AP reader, so if there's an AP teacher listening right now and he or she's like, I want to be an AP reader, what's the best way to do that?
The College Board has a site. Probably the best way, just Google how to be an AP reader. But there is a site on the College Board's website, and they're constantly looking for readers in all of their subject matter.
So no tricks to the trade.
No
just
tricks
go in
to
there
the
and
trade.
apply.
You go in there, apply. You know, even if you're a first-year teacher, that's how much of a shortage is. You know, sadly, with so many people leaving the profession, we do have a shortage of readers. Yeah. And the good news is you can read in person. Like, for example, our reading is in Cleveland, where we convene.
Beautiful Cleveland, Ohio.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. Cleveland, Ohio, right? Anyway.
Rock and Roll Hall of Fame is there.
That is true. That is true. So a group of us convene in Cleveland, Ohio. There are other spots across the country, but for geography, we're in Cleveland. You can also read at home. Nice. If you wanted to. You know, if you got young kids, or, you know, you still in school and you want to read part-time, or you want to read full-time, but just be in the comfort of your own home, you can do that as well. That's nice. You know, you have that preference if you're hired. So it's really fun. Great couple of days of being with like-minded individuals and just,
Passionate folks.
Passionate. I was going to say, share the love of geography.
Absolutely. Well, Megan, what you got?
Okay, I've got some questions for you, just because I don't know.
Okay.
If you could explain a little bit about how many points you get for FRQs out of the whole score you get for the exams, and does it change by subject, or is it pretty much the same?
Well, it does change by subject because, for example, in AP Human Geography, 50% of your score comes from the FRQs and 50% comes from the multiple choice questions.
Okay.
Whereas, for example, I'm now teaching AP African American Studies. There's less of a emphasis on the FRQs. There's, for example, there's a DBQ and there's an individual student project that counts for 10% of the student score.
Yeah.
Got it.
DBQ, document-based questions.
Thank you, Philip.
Sorry about
super tricky.
Thank you so much.
Super
DBQs,
tricky.
I wouldn't say that's a student's favorite type of FRQ.
No, I wouldn't either.
Okay, another question.
Mm-hmm.
So how do the rubrics fit in to how you're scoring the FRQs? And do teachers teach to the rubric? Do they have a copy of it so they
That's
can
a great
prepare their
question.
students?
Generally what happens is the rubrics are made as the questions are made. And then they're brought to Cleveland. There's some smoothing of it if there's some rough edges to it. And then dispensed through the leadership to some more smoothing of the rough edges. And then when the readers come in, it goes live, so to speak. There can be changes. If there's something super egregious or something needs to be added, it can always be added. Maybe we see a bunch of kids are talking about X, Y, and that's all we have. But then here comes a bunch of kids talking about Z.
Yeah.
We can add Z to the rubric. After everything is officially done and everything's graded for the most part, we did still get some late ones in. Those FRQs and their rubrics are released to the public. So a teacher, and we get a lot of teachers, as soon as the kids finish the exam, I want to say it may be that's a couple of hours after the same day they take the exam, those FRQs are released a couple of days later. And then after we finish the reading, that's when the rubrics are released. And probably a really important thing for teachers to look at is the Chief Reader's Report. In that, the Chief Reader details, here's where the kids were successful, here's where they're not, and here's some ideas to improve.
And so teachers should really reflect with that document prior to teaching the next year, I would think.
Not only that, but teachers also get they get a report that tells them how well their students did on each part of the exam, correlated with different parts of the CED.
You said that students are writing more digitally. What impact, if any, do you think AI will have on their writing skills?
Well, kind of similar to what the impact of what I call text messaging had on their writing.
Yeah.
Doesn't sound positive.
It's not, because even some of my English colleagues will say the same. They're writing like they're texting.
Mm-hmm.
And so instead of writing out right now, they'll put RN.
Yep.
And I tell, hey, this is not a text message. Write it out.
Mm-hmm.
And I always date myself. I'm like, guys, we're old. We don't speak in teenager. Write it out.
I love that. Okay. That's what I got. Thank you, Greg.
You're welcome. Thank y'all.
Thanks for being here today. We really appreciate it.
You bet. Thank you.
You got it, buddy. All right, folks. Well, I hope you enjoyed Greg Hill. Fantastic veteran AP educator. If you've got questions for Greg or, guests you think I should have on the show, I'd love to hear from you. If you've got suggestions, if you've got anything that we should know, please send those our way. Of course, like and subscribe. Big thanks to Zach, and of course, a big thanks to Megan for helping us put this all together. And, AP teachers out there, keep on doing what you're doing and getting kids ready for those AP exams. And always remember that life begins at the edge of your comfort zone. The opinions expressed by our guests and hosts are their own and do not necessarily reflect the views from Classroom to Campus, UWorld, or its affiliates. You can find us on Spotify, Apple, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. Please remember to subscribe and leave a 5-star rating that really helps us out. Thank you so much.